My twin sister stole my fiancé. They got married on my wedding day. But when he found out it was all a lie and came begging for forgiveness a year later, my answer left everyone speechless. I'm 27 years old. I work in digital marketing, and I need to get this story off my chest because what happened a little over a year ago basically destroyed everything I thought I knew about love, family, and trust. The truth is, there are still days when I wake up and think, maybe it was a nightmare. You know, one of those really vivid ones that leave you confused for a few seconds when you open your eyes. But then I remember that no, it all really happened, and that my twin sister married my fiancé on the same day I was supposed to marry him. Yes, you read that right. The same damn day. But I guess I should start at the beginning, when we were kids, because none of this makes sense without that context. Veronica and I are identical twins. I mean, literally the same face, the same body. We were born minutes apart and share the same DNA. But to my parents, it was always as if she had arrived first, bringing all the light in the world with her, and I was some kind of defective copy that came after. I don't know how to explain it without sounding dramatic, but it's the truth. For as long as I can remember, Veronica was the perfect child, the princess, the one who could do whatever she wanted without consequences. And I was Abigail, the other daughter, the one who always did something wrong, even if I did exactly the same thing as my sister. I'll give you a really specific example because I know it sounds exaggerated. When we were like 12 years old, we both got bad grades in math. I think we both failed an important test or something. I don't remember exactly, but it was the same test. Veronica came home crying, with those perfect tears she always knew how to produce at will, and my parents consoled her, told her it was okay, that math was difficult, that they were going to get her a tutor. I arrived 2 hours later with the same grade, and my father yelled at me for half an hour about responsibility and effort, and they grounded me for 2 weeks. Veronica laughed when my parents weren't looking. That kind of thing happened constantly, like all the time. And when I tried to point it out, my parents told me I was being dramatic or jealous. In high school, it got worse. Veronica could stay out late with her friends, could use the family car whenever she wanted, could basically do whatever she felt like. I had a curfew at 9 at night, even on weekends. I had to ask permission for everything days in advance, and if I protested, I was ungrateful. My parents paid for Veronica's graduation trip to Cancun with her friends, but when I asked to go on the same trip, they told me there was no money, and that besides, I hadn't earned it. You know what I mean? It was that kind of favoritism so blatant that even my classmates noticed it and asked me why my parents hated me so much. The worst part is that Veronica never defended me. Never. In fact, she took advantage of the situation all the time. If she wanted something I had, she just had to ask for it, and my parents would force me to give it to her. If we got in trouble together, she knew she could blame me, and my parents would automatically believe her. It was like living in a house where there was a favorite daughter and a disposable daughter, and guess which one I was? When it came time to apply to universities, I had worked super hard on my admissions essay. I spent months writing it, revising it, polishing every word because I knew it was my ticket to get out of that house and go to a decent university far from my family. I wrote about growing up feeling invisible, about finding my voice despite circumstances, about wanting to be something more than someone else's shadow. It was honest. It was vulnerable. It was good. Veronica read it because I asked for her opinion. Because despite everything, she was still my twin sister. And at that moment, I still had that stupid hope that things could get better between us. 3 weeks later, I discovered that Veronica had copied my essay word for word and had sent it as hers with her university application. She didn't even change anything. Literally copied and pasted my work, my story, my words, and claimed them as hers. I found out by accident when I saw a printed draft in her room. I stood there frozen, staring at that paper, reading my own words in her application, and I felt like something broke inside me permanently. I asked her what the hell she was doing, and she told me, without any remorse whatsoever, that my essay was better than hers and that she needed it more than me because I was going to get into some mediocre university anyway. She told me that with a smile, as if it were the most normal thing in the world to steal my work and my story. I went to my parents and showed them the evidence, explained what had happened, and you know what they said? And that I was exaggerating, that it was probably a misunderstanding, that Veronica would never do something like that on purpose, and that anyway, I should feel flattered that my sister thought my writing was good. That's when something really broke in me. I was 18 years old, and I realized that my parents were never going to be on my side no matter what. So I did what I had to do. I reported the plagiarism to the university, showed them the dated drafts of my essay, showed them everything. The university investigated, and Veronica was basically blacklisted, you know, because academic plagiarism is super serious and no decent university was going to accept her after that. My parents blamed me for ruining Veronica's life. My father yelled at me that I was vindictive, envious, that I had destroyed my sister's future out of pure spite. My mother cried and cried for days, telling me how could I do that to my own sister. Veronica told me she hated me and would never forgive me. And I left that house feeling a strange mix of guilt and liberation because I had finally done something for myself even though it meant my family despised me even more. I went to college and basically cut contact with all of them. It wasn't hard, truth be told, because they didn't make much effort to maintain the relationship either. I think I talked to my parents like 3 times in 4 years, super brief and tense conversations where they basically reminded me how terrible I was. Veronica didn't speak to me at all. I was okay with that, or at least I convinced myself I was okay, because I finally had space to breathe and be myself without constantly being compared or belittled. It was in my sophomore year of college when I met Tyler. He was an engineering student. He was 21 years old at that time, I think. And he was one of those people who make you feel like you're the only person in the room when they talk to you. You know what I mean? We started as friends. We met in a random study group for a math class we both needed for requirements, and we just connected. We talked about everything, spent hours together, and for the first time in my life, I felt like someone really saw me and valued me for who I was. We started dating 6 months after we met, and it was the healthiest and most beautiful relationship I could have imagined. Tyler was attentive, loving. He listened to me. He supported me in everything. When I told him about my family, about what had happened with Veronica and my parents, he got angry on my behalf, told me I had done the right thing and that I didn't deserve that treatment. His family was also incredible, especially his mom Sharon, who treated me like a daughter from day one. I spent Christmases and Thanksgivings with them, and I felt like I finally had the family I had always wanted. We dated for 4 years, lived together the last 2, and our relationship was solid. It was real. It was everything I had dreamed of. Tyler proposed to me one random Friday night while we were cooking pasta in our apartment. It wasn't anything elaborate or dramatic. He just knelt in the middle of the kitchen with the ring he had been carrying in his pocket for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment, and asked me if I wanted to marry him. Of course I said yes. We planned a small and intimate wedding for the following year. Just close family and friends. Nothing ostentatious. Just something meaningful and beautiful. This is where everything started to fall apart. Though at the time I didn't see it coming at all. Tyler knew about my family situation. Knew I didn't talk to my parents or Veronica. Knew the whole story about the plagiarism and the favoritism and everything. But like 6 months before the wedding, he started insisting that I should invite them. He told me it was my wedding, that it was an important moment, that maybe this could be an opportunity to reconcile, that family is important no matter what. I told him no, that he didn't understand, that it wasn't that simple, that those people had hurt me my entire life, and I didn't want that stress on my special day. But Tyler kept insisting, and he started pressuring me more and more. He said I would regret not inviting them, that when we had kids I would want them to know my parents, that I was being stubborn and resentful. His mom Sharon also started putting in her 2 cents, saying that family should always get a second chance, that forgiveness was important. I felt pressured from all sides, like I was the bad guy for not wanting my toxic family at my wedding, and eventually I gave in a little. I agreed to invite my parents, but I made it clear to Tyler that Veronica wasn't invited under any circumstances. That was my line in the sand. Tyler seemed to accept it. I called my parents. We had an awkward conversation where I basically told them their daughter was getting married and they were invited if they promised to behave and not cause drama. They said yes, that they would be there, that they appreciated the invitation. They sounded weird, like too nice all of a sudden. But I wanted to believe that maybe they really wanted to make peace. 1 week before the wedding, Tyler told me that my parents wanted to meet with me for dinner, to talk before the big day and try to smooth things over. I agreed because I thought it would just be the 3 of us. Maybe we could have a civilized adult conversation. I arrived at the restaurant Tyler had chosen, and there was Veronica, sitting at the table with my parents, smiling as if nothing as if almost 10 years hadn't passed without us talking. I felt betrayed immediately. I looked at Tyler and asked him what the hell was going on, why she was there when I had made it crystal clear that I didn't want to see her. My parents started with a prepared speech about family healing, about how Veronica had matured and wanted to apologize, about how we should leave the past behind and be a family again. Veronica didn't say anything, just looked at me with that expression I knew so well, that mix of smugness and false innocence she always used when she knew that was going to get her way. I got up from the table. I told them this was exactly why I didn't want them in my life, that they had lied to me and ambushed me, that they had no respect for my boundaries or my feelings. Tyler tried to calm me down, asked me to sit down and listen, that it was just an hour. What was wrong with trying to make peace with my sister? And there, in that moment, I realized that he didn't get it, that he really didn't understand what it was like to grow up with this kind of manipulation and favoritism, and that maybe he never would. I left the restaurant, drove home crying, and waited for Tyler to come home so we could talk. But Tyler didn't come home that night. In fact, Tyler didn't come home the next day either. He sent me a text saying he needed time to think, that he was disappointed in my reaction, that he had expected more maturity from me. I responded with like 50 messages explaining myself, telling him we needed to talk, begging him to understand my perspective. He stopped responding. 7 days went by without hearing from Tyler. 7 full days where my fiancé, the man I was going to marry in a week, completely ghosted me. He didn't answer calls, didn't answer messages, wasn't at the apartment when I got there. I was devastated, confused, scared. I called Sharon and she sounded weird, told me Tyler was fine but that he needed space, to let him process his emotions. I called Tyler's friends and nobody knew anything, or at least that's what they said. 3 days before the wedding, when it was clear that Tyler wasn't going to show up or talk to me, I started canceling everything. I called the venue. I called the catering. I called the photographer. I called everyone and canceled the entire wedding. Some vendors were understanding, others weren't. We lost deposits, we lost money. But at that point, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted this to be over. I just wanted to understand what the hell had happened with the man who supposedly loved me and with whom I had planned to spend my life. On the day that was supposed to be my wedding, I stayed in bed all day. I couldn't move, I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything except stare at the ceiling and wonder how I had gotten to this point. My friends came to see me, brought me ice cream and movies, tried to cheer me up, but I was broken in a way I didn't know it was possible to be broken. Around 6 in the evening, one of my friends checked social media and found photos. Photos of a wedding that had happened that same day. Tyler had married Veronica. I can't describe what I felt in that moment. It was like all the air had been sucked out of the room, like my brain had shut down because the information was too impossible to process. My fiancé had married my twin sister on the same day he was supposed to marry me. He had used our venue, our catering, our plans, everything, but with her instead of me. The photos showed my parents there, smiling, celebrating, as if this were the most normal and wonderful thing in the world. The next few months were the darkest of my life. I moved to a new apartment because I couldn't stand being in the place I had shared with Tyler, the place where we had planned our future together. I had to take time off work because I couldn't function, couldn't concentrate on anything. I went to therapy. Many sessions, trying to understand how I had gotten here, trying to process the betrayal and the pain. My friends were incredible, my boss was understanding, but none of that changed the fact that the 2 people who had hurt me the most in my life, my sister and my family, I had just done it again, but in a way I hadn't even imagined possible. The worst part was not knowing what had happened. I didn't know why Tyler had done this, when whatever there was between him and Veronica had started, if he had been cheating on me the whole time or if it was something that happened in that week he disappeared. I had no answers, and it was killing me, but I also had no way to get them because Tyler wasn't responding to any attempt at contact, and obviously I wasn't going to humiliate myself looking for Veronica or my parents. Little by little, I started rebuilding myself. I went back to work, started going out with friends again, forced myself to do normal things even though I didn't feel anything inside. I moved to another city to have a fresh start, got a better job, adopted a cat, small steps, trying to create a life that didn't revolve around the giant hole that Tyler and my family had left. Almost a year after the wedding that never happened, I received a call from Sharon, Tyler's mom. I hadn't talked to her since before the whole disaster, obviously, and seeing her name on my phone made me feel a bunch of things at the same time. I almost didn't answer, but something made me do it. Sharon was crying, sobbing so hard she could barely speak, and she asked me to please, please, meet with her, that she had to tell me something important, that I deserved to know the truth. Part of me didn't want to know anything, wanted to move on with my life and leave all that in the past. But another part, the part that still needed answers after a year, agreed to meet with her. We met at a neutral cafe, a public place where I felt safe. Sharon arrived, looking terrible, like she had aged 10 years in one, with dark circles and trembling hands as she held her coffee. She told me everything. She told me that Veronica and my parents had lied, that they had told Tyler horrible things about me during that time he disappeared after the disastrous dinner. They told him I was a pathological liar, that I had made up everything about the favoritism and the plagiarism, that Veronica was the victim, and I was an abusive and manipulative sister who had ruined her life out of jealousy. They showed him false evidence, emails and messages they probably fabricated, stories that sounded convincing because they knew all the details of my life. Tyler, according to Sharon, had been devastated because he thought our entire relationship had been a lie, that I was a completely different person from who he thought. Veronica offered to console him during that time, played understanding and vulnerable, basically seduced him while he was emotionally destroyed. My parents pushed the relationship, told him that Veronica had always been in love with him, but never said anything out of respect for me. All that garbage. Sharon explained to me that Tyler married Veronica as a kind of temporary arrangement, a way not to lose the wedding deposits and not go through the social embarrassment of a canceled wedding. That they had agreed to divorce quietly after a few months. But Veronica refused to divorce when the time came. She clung to the marriage, threatened to make a scene, to accuse him of horrible things if he tried to leave her. Tyler was trapped in a marriage he never really wanted, with a woman who turned out to be exactly what I had warned him she was. What finally made everything explode was that Veronica, in a drunken moment like 2 months ago, confessed everything to Tyler in the middle of a fight. She told him she had lied about me, that everything my parents told him was false, and that she had manipulated him from the beginning because she had always felt I didn't deserve to be happy after ruining her college opportunities. She basically admitted she married him for revenge, to take away the only good thing I had in my life, to prove that she could always take whatever she wanted from me because that's how it had always been. Tyler was devastated when he realized what he had done, that he had destroyed the woman he really loved by believing lies from people who only wanted to hurt me. Sharon told me he's been in therapy, that he's trying to divorce Veronica, but she's making the process as difficult as possible, that he's consumed by guilt and regret. And then Sharon told me what she had really come to tell me, the reason she called me after a year. Tyler wanted to see me, wanted to apologize, wanted to explain everything to me, wanted to beg me to forgive him and see if there was any possibility at all, that we could try again. I sat there listening to all this and felt absolutely nothing. It was as if Sharon was talking about people I didn't know, about a story that had nothing to do with me. When she finished talking and looked at me waiting for a response, I told her very calmly that I wasn't going to meet with Tyler, that I didn't want his apologies, and that I didn't care how much he was suffering or regretful, because that was the price of his decisions. I told Sharon that Tyler was an adult when he decided to believe my family over me after 4 years of a relationship where I had never given him any reason to doubt me. That he was an adult when he decided to ghost me the week before our wedding instead of talking to me about his doubts. That he was an adult when he decided to marry my twin sister on the day he was supposed to marry me, and that now he could be an adult and live with the consequences of those decisions. Sharon tried to argue, told me he had been manipulated, that Veronica and my parents were experts at lying, that he really loved me, and that he made a terrible mistake. I told her I understood, that I knew exactly how manipulative my sister and my parents could be, but that Tyler had had the option to talk to me, to trust me, to give us a chance to work through any doubts he had, and instead, he chose to believe them and destroy everything we had built. That some actions have permanent consequences, and this was one of them. I told her I hoped Tyler learned from this, that I hoped he found peace eventually, but that I was no longer part of his story, and he was no longer part of mine. That I had spent a year rebuilding myself from the rubble he and my family had left, and that I wasn't going to destroy that progress by letting him back into my life. Sharon cried and cried, told me she understood but to please reconsider, that Tyler was really having a hard time. And you know what? Like, I didn't care. I didn't feel satisfaction or revenge or anything dramatic. I just felt a kind of peace knowing that Tyler finally understood what he had lost, knowing that he was going to have to live the rest of his life with the knowledge that he destroyed the best relationship he had by believing lies from manipulative people. That was his cross to bear, not mine. After that conversation, I blocked Sharon's number, blocked any way Tyler could have to contact me, and moved on with my life. I don't know what happened with his divorce. I don't know how my family is. And honestly, I don't care. I cut all ties, changed cities, built a new life with people who really value and respect me. Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if Tyler hadn't insisted I invite my family to the wedding, if he had trusted my judgment about my own family, if he had maintained that boundary. But then I realized that if he was capable of abandoning me so easily, of believing people he met for a few hours over the woman he had spent 4 years with, then it was probably better to find out before we got married and had kids with him. It hurts, obviously, but it's better than having discovered his true nature 10 years later with children involved. My therapist says I'm processing everything incredibly well, that the fact that I could set boundaries with Sharon and the entire situation shows enormous emotional growth. I guess she's right. I've learned that some people, no matter if they share your blood or if they once said they loved you, are toxic and destructive, and that it's okay. In fact, it's necessary to cut them completely out of your life to be able to heal and be happy. I've learned that forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone, especially people who have deliberately hurt you, again and again, without showing real remorse until they face consequences. I'm good now, honestly. I have a job I like. I live in a new city. I have incredible friends who are more family to me than my blood family ever was. I'm seeing someone new. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice. It's healthy. It's someone who respects my boundaries and my history. There are still difficult days, obviously, but they're less and less frequent. Last week, I found old photos of Tyler and me, from when we were happy and everything was simple and good, and I looked at them without crying for the first time. I saw them as if they were photos of another person, of another life that no longer exists. And I felt grateful, like genuinely grateful, that that life ended when it ended, because the life I'm building now is completely mine. It's not contaminated by people who never valued me or really saw me. That has to count for something, right? At the end of the day, I survived the worst thing I could imagine, and I'm still here. I'm still standing. I still have the ability to trust and love and believe in something better, and that's enough for now.